Bill Henshaw here again. More current news, and like my friend says doing the videos here, the good news is you too can get a free vasectomy. All you have to do is go to Alabama. They're seriously considering a law, which they haven't passed yet, to make mandatory vasectomies for men over the age of 50 or those who've already had 3 kids. You're out of there. Now, wow. But there's some elements that you'd be surprised when you stop and think about it. But, if they can do this, and is there a scenario where they might be able to do it? And you could think with serious global warming and the threat to the survival of the planet, that might be a possibility, which of course isn't what's being discussed here. So, boy, the issue is here, though, my goodness. Why limit it to 3? I mean, and in my family, and I'm sure my family is typical of families in earlier generations, you would often have 7 or 8 kids, or sometimes even more, because if you're living on a farm, you had a built-in labor force to work on your farm. I mean, it was common. That's what you did in rural areas, so you would have a lot of kids. My mom had 5 brothers and sisters, which wasn't a whole lot. But her mother, I think, was the eldest of 13, my grandmother. So that was somewhat more common in the day. But nowadays, they're really trying to do this. And, the problem with that is, with vasectomies, mandatory ones, especially if you don't, if you use different criteria, it's going to cut across racial and poverty lines, and there's going to be a lot of NAACP types that raise all kinds of hell about racial discrimination and this, that, and the other. But the bigger problem here is that the government thinks that, you wouldn't think the government would have anything to do at all with creating the right to life, would you? But it's not what they see behind the scenes. It's not what the New York bankster bosses on Broadway see. What they see are people that are born, and the government owns them lock, stock, and barrel. They monetize the birth certificate, they're artificial corporate entities, and they make a lot of money from that. And that alone, by the way, I would expect the banksters to be filing a claim against the Alabama law should it go into effect for a conflict of interest. They wouldn't put it that way, honestly, but nevertheless, that's what it would be. But see, to do that, now I can think, and by the way, there's already a law in the books I've talked about before, Carrie Buck v. Bell, 274 U.S. 200, where Carrie Buck was sterilized involuntarily, never knew what happened. She was in an insane asylum because apparently she was insane, as apparently was her mom and her grandmother. And she didn't find out about this after she got out and got married and couldn't have kids, and they went to the doctor and she said, well, you got fixed. When all she thought happened was an appendectomy. Quite naturally, she sues the hospital, which is embarrassing from my quasi-home state of Virginia. And the case gets all the way to the Supreme Court, and they rule against her, with that Yankee from Olympus, Oliver Wendell Holmes, ruling for the majority. I swear to God, what he said, 3 generations of imbeciles is enough. Using that logic, today I would argue that 5 generations of welfare recipients are enough. If all you're going to do is have kids that are going to go on a public charge and become charges to the taxpayers, and the government can put guns to our head to force us to support them, you got a case to be made there under those circumstances. And there may be others, but it's wow. It's a far more diverse subject than you would think at first blush. So we'll see. Like I say, law hasn't been passed yet, hasn't gone into effect, but that they're even seriously considering something like that. And in the heart of Dixie, for crying out loud, you people in Montgomery, one might assume you would know better down there at this point, but maybe it has been too long. But I just can't see anything like this happening during the time when George Corley-Wallace was in there as the governor. And maybe even Lurleen, too, because she served a full term, as I remember also. It would never have occurred to him to do such a thing. But it's the generation we live in today, the times we live in today. I mean, who knows? By the way, if you're going to have mandatory vasectomies, a much better place to start there would be Peking, China, or Pyongyang. And you're doing them a favor to keep from bringing to lives like that. that's really, although ours aren't that much different. I said it before, I'll say it again. The difference is they're much more creative about covering up what the life really is here. It's a lot closer to Russia and North Korea than what you think. It's just they've adapted and they've got better at covering it up and making it look like that you have rights and you can go vote and this, that, and the other, all this BS on Super Tuesday. But it isn't the way it is. So why anyone wants to bring a kid into this world, I don't know. But yeah, I'm sure China, one way or another, would love to get rid of about 500 million people. And one wonders, a quick aside here, whether maybe that's not the idea behind the coronavirus currently circulating around over there. I'm not saying it is, but I wouldn't be surprised either. I mean, what have they got over there? 2.5 billion people? God, give me a break. So we'll see how that plays out. Right now, we don't know. But this whole thing with this mandatory law, like I said, nothing's passed yet, and probably nothing will be, but wow. And then what do you do? But I remember a film years ago called, what's the name? It was a Swedish film. Can't think of the name right now. It was a very famous film because they had, you know, sex and everything in there, and of course it wasn't shown in I Am Curious Yellow, I think is the name of the film. And among other things, what they did there was show the old style form of a vasectomy, where you held up the guy so he could move, and he had a goat come over there and bite the balls off. So that's one way to do it. I mean, is that what you're thinking of Montgomery? Is that how? I mean, who knows? But think of all the medical fees you'll see. You don't need doctors, don't need nurses, and just get a goat. See you later. Simple. So anyway, I'll report back on this when more information comes in. Whether it passes, I can't imagine there. You could maybe see it in maybe New York or Massachusetts or somewhere passing a law like that. But wow, Alabama. Although I was having a 7-month vacation in South Carolina, I guess I shouldn't be surprised at anything these days. Anyway, that said, we'll have more in the next video. In the meantime, like my videos, tell your friends, subscribe, and send me an email about my document packets, constitutional defense document packets. Send me an email at unincourt@gmail.com. Thank you.